Okay, so your music career is finally making some real money. First off, that's awesome. But, and there's always a but, right? With that success comes a brand new problem. What do you do with all that cash? Suddenly, everyone's got an opinion. We're going to cut right through all that noise today, because trust me, getting this part right is absolutely crucial for your future.
I bet you've heard it a million times already, right? Backstage, in some stuffy meeting room, from other artists you know. The second your finances get even a little more complicated than just one paycheck, the advice just starts pouring in. And honestly, it usually just makes things more confusing.
And that advice, it almost always boils down to two things. Someone's in your ear saying, get an accountant, and then the next person is telling you, no, you need a business manager. They sound kind of the same, but they are not. And that difference, well, it's everything.
Look, this is where it gets really serious. Hiring the wrong person, or even the right person, but at the wrong time, that can be a massive, costly mistake. So let's just get right to it. What is the actual difference between these two jobs?
Okay, but before we dive into defining the roles, I want to put a name to a feeling you might know a little too well. We're going to call it the chaos threshold. You know, that tipping point where your finances stop feeling like a business and start feeling like, well, like a dumpster fire you're trying to put out with a squirt gun. So what does that feel like? Well, maybe you're paying your bandmates late, or tax season is just an absolute nightmare. You've got money coming in from streams, from merch, from shows, but when you get to the end of the month, you have absolutely no clue where it all went, or if you even made a real profit. Yeah, if any of that is ringing a bell, you've crossed the threshold. All right, so we've identified the problem. Now let's talk about the solution. It's time to meet your potential financial team. We're going to break down these two key roles so you know exactly what you're dealing with. You know, at its heart, the difference is actually pretty simple. Think of it like this. An accountant is all about taxes and records, keeping you out of trouble. A business manager, on the other hand, is running the entire financial machine of your career. They're handling the day-to-day stuff and, more importantly, planning for your future.
So let's drill down a bit. Your accountant? They are your go-to person for staying on the right side of the IRS. They're the ones matching up your bank statements, tracking all your income for tax season, and filing all that paperwork to keep you compliant. I like to think of them as your financial historian. They keep the official record.
Now, a business manager, that's a different beast entirely. They are your financial quarterback. They're calling the plays, they're managing your entire financial strategy, making sure your tour crew gets paid on time, chasing down those ridiculously complicated royalty payments, helping you figure out if you can afford that next big recording project. Their whole job is to keep you profitable and help you grow. Here's probably the easiest way to remember it. Accountants look at the past. They report on what already happened with your money. Business managers look to the future. They strategize about what's going to happen with your money. One is reactive, the other is proactive. Simple as that. Okay, great. So now we know what they do, but that brings us to the biggest, most practical question of all. When do you actually hire them? Because with this stuff, timing really is everything. So if you're in the early stages, let's say you're making less than, 50 grand a year from maybe one or two income streams, a good accountant is probably all you need. For real. They can handle your taxes, your basic bookkeeping, and you won't have the major expense of a full-on business manager. But once you start creeping up past that $150,000 mark, whoa, the complexity can just explode. And this is the zone where a business manager stops being some kind of fancy luxury and becomes an absolute necessity. We're talking about protecting what you've built and setting yourself up for real growth.
And listen, it's not just about the final number. It's about complexity. Are you trying to juggle money from touring and merch and publishing and streaming? Do you have a whole team to pay out? Your manager, your agent, your band? Are you trying to make huge decisions like, should we buy a new van or can we afford to invest in a home studio? Those are the signs that you need a strategic partner in your corner.
Okay, so you've decided you need help. Let's talk brass tacks. How much is this going to cost? And, maybe even more importantly, what are the red flags? How do you spot a bad actor before it's too late? Let's get into the practical stuff. Right off the bat, how they get paid is totally different. An accountant? They're usually going to charge you by the hour, or maybe a flat fee for a specific job, like filing your year-end taxes. But a business manager is way more involved in your career, so they typically take a percentage of your gross income. The standard is usually somewhere between 3 and 5%. Okay, I need you to lean in and listen close here, because this might be the single most important thing we talk about today. You have to protect yourself.
If anyone you're thinking about hiring is shady with the reports, if they dodge your questions, or, and this is the biggest red flag in the universe, if they ever mix your money with their own accounts, you run. You don't walk, you run away. Immediately. No second chances.
All right, let's start to wrap this up by shifting how we're thinking about this whole thing. This is not just about hiring someone to do your paperwork. It's about shifting into a pro mindset to protect the career that you have worked so damn hard to build.
So here's the smart play. Here's how you scale your team. You start with a great accountant, period. Then, as things get busier, maybe you add a monthly bookkeeper, just to handle the day-to-day transaction stuff. And then, only when you hit that chaos threshold we talked about, when things get truly big and complex, that's when you bring in the business manager. The key is, don't hire for a problem you don't have yet.
So please, stop thinking of a business manager as some kind of luxury expense you can't afford. That is completely the wrong way to look at it. They are a risk control tool. They protect you from missed opportunities, from really expensive mistakes, and from shady people. They give your career the solid financial ground it needs to actually grow. So I'll leave you with this one thought. At some point, managing the money that your art creates becomes a full-time job all by itself. So the real question isn't, can I afford professional help? The real question is, can I afford not to have it? Are you treating the business of your music with the same seriousness and passion as you treat the music itself?